Hiya, it's Our Freedom Song, which is the name of the channel. And one of the big things I want to talk about, it's going to be like a series basically, about different concepts of can you literally get to the point where you don't need the media to tell you much of who to vote for. Because that's really the ultimate point, is if we can evolve as human beings past certain things, can we make the wise decision regardless? And that's going to be part of this series. The biggest thing I want to talk about is how people view martial law. And again, when you assume martial law, you think it's the entire country, and that's not the case. If you go back to the 70s, there was martial law in the Baltimore, but it wasn't the entire country. It was just New York, basically, or Baltimore at that time, for obvious reasons. So again, just because martial law is declared does not mean depending upon where you live, you're going to be under it. You know, you're probably going to go to your job, you're going to just go about your normal life. And again, life has to move, right? Food has to be produced, and food has to move, and electricity has to run. These things are going to continue. Basically, what it's for is when things get so out of hand that you definitely need a certain level of law and order. And definitely that's kind of where we're at when it comes to our government at this point. Regardless of what side you're on, okay? You cannot be short-sighted with this, because you can't say, well, I don't care, this person's out, and I don't really care. You're not thinking 4 years ahead. You're not thinking 8 years ahead. And if this is let go, what occurred with this election, where these machines don't get removed, you know, I think they all need to get removed, no matter what they are. It's just too much potential for cheating, basically. There are some things that you just have to go back to the basics, okay? And that is paper ballot, signature required, signature matching. You have to be a citizen, and you have to be a citizen, a resident of that state or that county, and you have to physically go in and vote. And there has to be people observing from all sides. And yes, you're still going to have a little bit, but that's manageable. And usually, I always kind of make a joke with my friends is, well, in the past, maybe both sides were cheating a little, and it kind of evened out, so therefore you had a fair election. Who knows? The point is, ever since these machines were introduced, there's definitely been major issues. I think this is the first time we've seen how bad these machines were being used in a really bad way. And again, you got to flip the coin, right? Because if you're going to say, well, it's okay, we just want this person out, well, what's going to say that, you know, the other side can't use those same methods, you know, to win the next one? But once that gets established, once something gets into all power, you have the House, you have the Senate, you have the presidency, you're not exactly going to be able to get rid of those machines easily, because of course the side that won using them is going to keep them in play. That's a problem. So again, if you're a Democrat and you're perfectly okay with what happened, understand that you'll never pick your leader again. You'll have this illusion that you will. They'll put two people up. Heck, they'll probably put up a Republican and a Democrat, but they're all going to be on the same side anyway. What I mean is they all have the same agenda. That's the future if you let this go. You cannot let your hatred for one human being, unfounded or whatever, make you that short-sighted to understand the consequence. Because, first of all, this corruption that is so deep and so wide did not happen overnight, right? It didn't just pop in there. You know, it's probably about 30 years in the making. Everything seems to be about 30 years in the making. And if you look at it through a perspective, right? If you elect people who are corrupt, okay, and you know they're corrupt, you know that, yeah, they're tied to this, they're tied to that, but you know what? You know, my side, that's all that matters. Again, it's that tribalism, something we have to evolve past as human beings. But if you do that, then what happens is, basically what happens, right? Corruption hires corruption. They're going to surround themselves with the same people like them because they have to keep that corruption going. And it goes right down the line. So if you hire a governor, you know, if you elect a governor, he, you know, really only cares about their political party. They could care less about you or about your state. They're going to hire people who are like them. And then those people are going to hire people who are like them. It goes right down the line. And then it gets so entrenched, so deep, that it's almost impossible to remove. So really the irony of it all is that the answer to all of our problems of having a government that actually works for us, like they're supposed to, is that you don't elect people who are corrupt. Think about it this way. If you bring it down to something smaller, right? Let's say you want to have a house built and you're looking for contractors. It's funny how when it comes to stupid little things like looking up a product. We look at reviews and we look for a commonality, 5 stars or 4 stars, and then we look for more than one because we want a consistency. We spend more time doing that than we do researching our candidates, right? And when you think about that, that's actually kind of terrifying, but it's the truth. But if you're going to hire a contractor for your house, are you going to, hire one that's crappy? Or are you going to hire one that has a good record? Because if you hire one that's crappy, chances are they're going to hire a plumber that's crappy. They're going to hire a electrician that's crappy, right? Especially if they're skimming or if they're cheating you out of money. They're not going to hire people who are good people. Corruption begets corruption. Good surrounds themselves with good because you don't want to be corrupted. So it really is that simple. You want to change your government. You want people that are good people that are in there, that are, reasonable, rational, balanced, look at all sides equally, understand their role, understand that they're working for you, understand the base principles of things in the way of our Constitution, and actually honor it and respect it. Because our Constitution is unique. And here's why. It is the only thing that the poorest of poor can use to stand against a giant and win. There's no other country in the world that has that. In other words, you could have a tiny little house in the middle of nowhere, but it's your house, it's your property. And some big conglomerate can come down and say, well, we want to take this land and we want to do this and this. And you can say no, per the Constitution, and you can win. But if you have judges that don't honor the Constitution, if you have law enforcement agencies that don't honor the Constitution, if you have governors and mayors who don't care about the Constitution, then it's a moot point. And again, our Constitution isn't written for a certain group of people. It is written for individuals, that each individual has these rights, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, doesn't matter. It's really quite beautiful. And right now it hangs on the balance that the giants will just trample you no matter who you are. And you will have nothing to fight them with. So if you say, I don't care, just get that guy out of there. Understand what you're giving up. Understand what you're setting up for the future is that you will think you will be electing somebody, but you won't. They'll pick and choose the people they want in, and then they'll switch the vote when they feel like it. And if you think the pendulum can't swing, that it can't go, from a far left to far right, it can. The pendulum swings all the time. So 50 years down the road, 20 years down the road, if the pendulum swings to where the far right starts seizing power, you may vote for the other person who's a moderate balanced. But that's not who's going to win, because that's not who the elites picked. So quit being short-sighted. Think about the bigger picture. Understand what's at stake. Take more time, maybe researching your candidates and their policies, than you do on a product. You want to stop corruption? It starts with you. It starts with all of us. We are all guilty of being lazy. We are all guilty of being spoon-fed, including myself. But I have learned a few things along the way. And I started wondering, do I need the media for anything in the way of candidates? Not really. All I have to do is listen to what comes out of their mouth. All I have to do is look at their policies, but I have to understand certain base principles. So this is the first part. Again, just kind of understanding of martial law, that it may not even affect you. It's really not a civil war. It's more of a revolutionary one. But again, you don't need... There's other ways to fight revolutionary wars. Yes, you can do it through military means, or you can do it through clever, smart strategy means. What the far left has used to get as far as they have is strategy, to some extent. Not even good strategy, by the way. They relied on certain aspects, propaganda. They relied on human nature, and they relied on people who were easily triggered by emotion. And it worked for a certain extent, but it didn't work completely. Not really. Actually, it went completely opposite, because technically, if it worked, the whole propaganda from the major news organizations, they wouldn't have had to cheat so hard, right? So clearly it didn't work. And that is because of our Constitution, our freedom of speech, which is being attacked on a daily basis. As of right now, we have third party in the way of news, in the way of opinion, or in the way of facts, or, there's different types. And as long as we have that, we can hear those different opinions and different viewpoints. What you don't want is an echo chamber completely, because then within a generation, it gets really nasty, and we'll talk about that maybe in a future episode. So it's kind of interesting, because Everything that the far left, I don't even know if it's far left anymore, I don't even know what it is, has tried, technically failed. Has it worked in some areas? Yes. Has it worked for some people? Yes. But not completely. And whether or not we survive this as a nation and keep our liberties so that we can conquer the giants as individuals when they trample on us is going to depend upon, well, you. All of us. Again, we didn't get to this position overnight. This is years and years in the making. How do we undo all this corruption, all these years of just being, basically of the public, the American citizen being foolish? Not all, but a lot. When you're looking at a pond that is nothing but mud, but there may be some good parts to it, some clean areas, it's too muddied. And your only choice is to drain it and siphon it. And that's kind of what we're at now. Maybe this had to happen. Regardless of how you look at it, maybe we had to see just how bad this corruption was. And the only choice is to just drain it. And that is going to require martial law, because the military makes an oath to, God, country, not to presidents, because presidents come and go. Country is the Constitution. Does that mean everybody in our military forces is outstanding, upstanding? And no, like any profession, you're going to have good and bad. But I do think the majority of them are good because of how they're trained and because of what the oath they take to. They understand the importance of the Constitution. So really the only people I trust right now to handle this election, even if we have to have a revote in those states, which I have no problem with, I think that's exactly what should happen. Again, put on your gloves, or whatever, put on your mask, physically go in and vote. No more excuses. If you're that scared, stay home. Get rid of the machines. No more mail-in ballots. The absentee ballots, again, it's going to be per that state. Those are going to have to be gone through again with a fine-tooth comb and hope for the best with that. And again, you have observers from all sides, and pretty much make it pretty clear that if you try to kick out people who are observing, this 6 feet rule, forget it. This is ridiculous. But if you any side tries to kick out any observers, that the military people there should arrest them immediately and say that's interfering with the election, and that's a federal offense. In other words, don't cheat. Now, I would think that Biden nor Trump would have an issue with this. I guess we'll see who's going to fight it the most, huh? Because the person who raises their hand, it's kind of like this. Look at it this way. Let's say this is a really good experiment you can do with people to understand, again, that there are giveaways in the very beginning of things. And, if you go to work one day, say, hey, I'm thinking about starting this race, with my community or whatever, and you're going to have a start point, you're going to have an end point. Here are the rules. But I had this person raise their hand and say, I want an early start. I mean, what am I supposed to conclude if they want an early start? There's only one thing to conclude. They want to cheat. So if you propose this idea of, okay, in these contested states, we're going to have another election. Again, we used to do elections in one day. We can do it in one damn day. It's only 7 states. We're going to have the military in place to make sure that because we can't even trust, again, there are 80% to probably 90, I would say 85% of police officers are good people. Okay? You're always going to have a percentage, guys. But unfortunately, because of everything just being so compromised, you have to just take them out of the picture for right now and just go with the military. And again, you got to have a lot of oversight, cameras, you name it. You have it in one day, get it done, and then we'll see. But if anybody raises their hand to contest it, well, what about the virus? What? No. It has a 99.7% survival rate. You're fine. Wear a mask, wear gloves. Okay? And that's what I mean. You set the rules, and you can't worry about, like we never worried about it before, of people who are just too damn lazy to get up and go, or too damn scared to get up and go. But whoever raises their hand first to say, well, wait a minute, what about this, what about that, wait a minute, then you know who the cheaters are. It's that simple. Let them give themselves away. And now you have to be clever enough, you have to be wise enough to see it. So again, this is going to be a series, and we're going to talk about some different aspects. But leave in the comments what you think. Again, like I said, I live in an area that has not experienced riots. I've been very lucky and very blessed in that. As of a lot of people, it is certain areas, and for obvious reasons, again, go back in time. I've been working since this coup, or whatever you want to call it, started. my area has been open for the most part. So I haven't noticed, in the way of my life, haven't noticed much of a change. So other people I know have. But again, it all comes down to who you elect, right? Now it really means something, doesn't it? And we'll go from there. But again, leave in the comments about, again, with very clear lines of rules. But the machines have to go. I have to say this. I had no idea how bad those systems were. I think we were all kind of oblivious. And again, if you learn anything from this, take it as a learning experience of, wow, I had no idea. I'm never going to use those things again. Now, what I'm afraid of is that they just say, nope, we're just going to use these and that's it. You're never going to be able to have a chance of a paper ballot. And trust me, I think the far left is going to push for that. The swamp has to be drained. It has to be done. We can't trust our judges. We can't even trust our Supreme Court now. So it's kind of at that point where it just has to be done. Now, what you fill those seats with when it's all over with is going to be up to you. You either you either start it all over again with the corruption, or you elect people who honor the Constitution, care about your state, who are balanced, reasonable people, who look at all sides equally. You become a tribalist again, and you just hit the D or hit the R. I remember when I went to vote, and I remember reading a comment from somebody that I thought was really interesting on a video I was watching, and that's kind of how I felt, was when it came to the bottom part of the ballot, not the top, but when it came to the bottom, it was a choice between cowardice and suicide. That is not a good position to be in. But I understood we had to stop the madness of the progressive movement, which is basically like a leech that has attached itself to the Democratic Party. If you're a Democrat, people weren't running from you. They're running from them. And until that leech gets pulled off, it's just gonna suck the Democratic Party dry. It happens. Happens all the time. Look at history. Just look at history. You'll see it all the time. So that's it. You guys put it in the comments, and I'll work on the next video. And thanks for listening, and have a great day.